Hello folks, welcome to my channel Java Demystified by SSR. Here comes the question number 39. What are wrapper classes in Java? Let's demystify this question. Wrapper classes in Java. Wrapper classes in Java are available in a package called java.lang. What these wrapper classes will do? Wrapper classes will actually make primitive values into an object. What are primitive values? We know there are 8 primitive data types in Java. Any value, any data value of such kind, for example, integer, byte, float, double, boolean, whatever it may be. So these primitive values can now be made as an object with the help of wrapper classes. Also, by making these wrapper classes, by making these primitive values into an object with the help of wrapper classes, we can actually create container object. That means now this primitive type will act as a container object for other object. And an object can be passed as a parameter to a method, and that object can be your integer or byte. So when you pass any primitive value, a value will get passed. When you make actually a primitive type into a wrapper type, then you you're actually passing object as a parameter. And of course, we can actually make our Java programming as pure object-oriented programming with the help of wrapper classes. That means in order to represent data, you use only wrapper classes and their objects. Then the program will become pure object-oriented. So as long as you are using your primitive types, as long as you are representing your data with the primitive values, it is not considered as a pure object-oriented because these primitive data values are not objects. For example, int a equal to 10, and that is a primitive value and it is not going to be an object. Now I can actually make this primitive value as an object with the help of a wrapper class. That wrapper class for that int is actually integer. So with this introduction, let us understand what wrapper classes we are having in java.lang package. So corresponding to each primitive type, there is a wrapper class. So we have 8 primitive types I have listed over here. Byte, in order to represent byte, so we have a byte class. This is a wrapper class that wraps the byte values into byte objects. And we have short, and then we have integer. So int will become integer. Since their class is the first letter is capital, that's what you have to do. Long will become long, and here char will become a character. Character is the wrapper class. And then coming to float, so it is a float, f capital, and double d capital, and finally we have boolean as a primitive data type, and we have a boolean as a wrapper class. So 8 primitive types and corresponding 8 wrapper class. That's it. The primitive types will be wrapped as wrapper objects so that they will become object. Since they become object, now all other things which you have mentioned, like they can act as container object, an object can be passed as a parameter when you pass a wrapper object. And since you are using only wrapper objects to represent data, we can actually call our Java programming as a pure object-oriented programming. And of course, we have a 9th wrapper class, that is void. So void is not actually in the list of 8 primitive types, but void is considered as an empty set data type in C and C++, and void is also there in Java to return nothing. So whenever you return nothing, whenever a method returns nothing, it actually has to be specified with the return type called void. Since void is there, so in order to replace, we have a wrapper class called void. Okay, so this void also can be used whenever you are returning nothing from a method. Okay, so these are the 9 wrapper classes, and then we will see how to instantiate, because now these have become classes, so these have to be instantiated, right? So how do we instantiate? So instantiation is similar to how we instantiate any Java Java class. As an example, so now I will remove all these things. So there are 9 wrapper classes. Now I want to instantiate integer. For example, I can actually do like this: integer a equals to new integer of, so of what value actually? So for example, I want to say 100. Now this a is a wrapper object. This a is a wrapper object. This is nothing but a equal to 100. This is nothing but int a equal to 100. But this is not a primitive type. This is actually a wrapper object. So a is referring to a wrapper object. So now a will have some hash code. A will have some hash code. If you go through this hash code, you will find the value of 100 in the heap memory. So this is how we can actually instantiate our wrapper classes. For example, we want to instantiate Boolean. So we can say Boolean b equals to, Boolean is a wrapper class and b is the reference variable that is referring to a new Boolean actually. And so we have 2 Boolean values. Boolean b equal to new Boolean of, let's say true. Let's say true. Okay, so because Boolean has 2 values, true and false, by default false will be the default value of a Boolean. So now I am instantiating with true. So in the same fashion, you can actually instantiate all other wrapper classes as well. So as an example, I'm going to show you the character. So how do we instantiate character? So character ch equals to new character of ch. So this character ch now is pointing to some character, and we know we'll represent characters in single quotes. Let's say I'm going to represent something called s. So new character of yes. Now ch is pointing to a character object which contains yes character. Okay, in the same fashion, as an example, if you take double d equals to a new double of any double value you can mention, let's say 3.14159. Okay, so in this way we can actually instantiate all remaining wrapper classes except void. So void we cannot instantiate. That means void object cannot be created because void has no data set. Void is an empty data set, so you cannot instantiate. Okay, rest of all wrapper classes can be instantiated. And one more important thing in the instantiation is all the wrapper classes except this character and void can also be instantiated with string. Can also be instantiated with string represented values. So for example, I can instantiate integer in string. So this is string represented integer value 10. So then I can represent int represented a double value represented in a string, a float value represented in a string, a Boolean value represented as a string. All wrapper classes except character and void can also be instantiated using string. Okay, so why character and void? Void has no value, so you cannot instantiate. And character, whenever we are instantiating, character actually takes single quotes, right? So that's why we cannot instantiate that with a string representation. Okay, and since all these now are wrapper classes, they will be having methods and they will be having fields as well. So for example, integer class, if you take, so there are several methods which are available. One of the method that we are using regularly whenever you want to convert any string represented value to int, that is parseInt method, which is a static method actually. Like that, we have some other methods which are available to convert one type to other type actually. So for example, from an integer, I can actually get the double value. Okay, so int a equal to new integer of some 10, then I can say a dot double value, so it will become 10.0. So like that we have several methods, because these are now classes, and these wrapper classes also has certain fields. So let's now understand these wrapper classes with an example. So I have an example written over here, and before actually I go to this example, let me show you these wrapper classes in the API. So now, as I told, all these wrapper classes are available in lang package. So we have a lang package java.lang, and in the lang package, if you see, there are so many classes, and out of them we can actually see byte is a class, boolean is a class. Then you can actually see double. The double class wraps value of primitive type double in an object. It wraps double value to an object, that is a double object. The same fashion float, and then you can actually see integer. The integer class wraps a value of primitive type int in an object. So for example, if I go to the integer class, then I can actually see what are all the fields it is having. So bytes field, it will give you the number of bytes which are used to represent an int value. So we know there are 4 bytes, right? So then what is the maximum value? So because it is 4 bytes, the size is actually what? So the size is 32 bits. So the max value will be 2 power 31 minus 1, and the minimum value is minus 2 power 31. Okay, so these are the fields right away you can use. For example, integer a equal to new integer of some 10. So a dot bytes, a dot max value, a dot min value, a dot size, a dot type. Like that you can actually use all the fields. And of course there are some constructors to construct the integer objects, and then there are some methods actually, so many methods. So int value, byte value, double value, and you can actually get the hash code. Then yeah, so one method I'm referring to actually the parseInt. So parseInt method and parseInt method with radix value, like that. These are all these methods which are available in now integer class. And integer class is actually a final class. You can see all these wrapper classes are final classes. You can see here public final class integer, public final class integer. So it's a final class. When a class becomes final, it cannot be inherited, because it is representing, it is wrapping certain primitive data type, right? So we don't want to change the ranges, etc. and etc. So it was made final. And of course it extends to number. So number class is also there, and all this double, float, and int types will extend number class. And of course it implements some interfaces as well, comparable, constable, constant, descending. So this is actually the full signature. Like that, every class we can actually see. So let me now actually go to my Sublime Text and show you a program. So here what I'm doing, I'm actually making use of wrapper classes. So now here in my class test, in the main method, now I'm going to create 2 integer objects, integer a equal to new integer of 10, b equal to new integer of 20. So this is straight away instantiating with the int value, and here I am instantiating now with a string value, right? That is possible actually, right? You can actually instantiate all wrapper classes except void and character using string values. And yeah, so there are some methods. I told wrapper classes, I shown you some methods. So now if at all you are reading a value from the command line arguments, you will be reading that into the string array. So now whatever you read will be in the form of string. For example, I want to read some value, integer value. Now what I have to do is, because that is string represented, I have to convert back into the integer, right? So now I can use integer dot parseInt of aux of 0. So whatever the int value I pass through the command line argument. So here I am using command line argument 10 actually. So that command line argument 0 now converting back to integer. So here, for example, here I am passing the second argument, that is index 1 as a double value. So now from double wrapper class, we have the parse double. In the same fashion, parse byte, parse float, parse boolean. Like that, we have the parser methods to convert string represented values to corresponding primitive types. We have this parser methods, and these are the static methods. That's why we are straight away using with the class name. Okay, so as I shown you, there are some fields actually which are available in these wrapper classes. So for example, for integer dot max value, integer dot max value, integer dot byte, integer dot size. So I just want to know what is the maximum value of an integer, what is how much size this integer will take, and what is the size occupied by this particular integer. So I can actually make use of these fields, and I can actually get the values. And for example, here I want to find the max value of the float class. So in the same fashion, I can use in any other classes like byte, short, etc. and etc. Okay, so for example, character, I'm using character dot bytes and character dot size. So I'm going to get what is the size occupied by a character, and how many bits or size actually give in bits. So this will give me the size in bits, and this actually give me the size in number of bytes occupied actually. Okay, so yeah, these are few details because wrapper classes contains methods and fields. Now this 1.9 onwards, from Java 1.9, so these constructors are actually deprecated. So that's why when you compile, you will get a warning. So instead of using these constructors, you can actually write like this. So whenever you want to create an integer object, then you can actually say integer x equal to integer dot value of 10. So this is similar. And for example, you want to instantiate with the string represented into value. Now you can say integer dot value of string represented. Okay, so these are actually supposed to be used from Java 1.9, because from Java 1.9 these things have become these things have been deprecated. Okay, so instead of creating an object like integer a equal to new integer of 10, so that is a standard way of creating an object. Now Java recommends to use these methods, these factory methods, integer x equal to integer dot value of 10, integer y equal to integer dot value of 25. Okay, so still you can use, even though they are deprecated, only thing is you will be getting a warning, right? So now I have actually created two integer objects 10 and 25, and actually I'm printing, so x comma x plus y, so 10 plus 25, 35 will be my answer. So I want to show you that, so you can actually create objects like this, and you can actually do some arithmetic also. Okay, so let me actually compile this and show you. Yeah, so what we're doing is we're instantiating with constructors. Then we are using the methods like parser methods, which are static methods. Then I'm making use of the fields on different wrapper classes, and then I'm also creating objects with the help of the value of the method, which is applicable on other wrapper classes as well. So I'm using on integer class. So let me actually compile this and show you that everything is working fine. So Java C test.java. Then yeah, so as I told you, will get a warning because we are using the deprecated constructors. So what it says, integer int in integer has been deprecated and marked for removal. And here also integer of string in integer class has been deprecated and marked for removal. So these are the two warnings. Even then you can actually work. And then actually I am passing two values, aux of 0 and aux of 1. Aux of 0 is going to be my integer, aux of 1 is my double value. So let me pass some values. So I'm passing 99 and I am passing some 3.14159. So now those values will be read, and I'm of course not printing them. Just I want to show that you can actually read string represented values, and you can actually convert them back with the methods. Then sizes will get printed, integer, then float, and then character, and finally 10 plus 25, 35 is going to get printed. Yeah, now you can see. So the first one is actually the integer max value, and this is the integer max value. So if it is, what is the min value? If it is min value, so this will be minus, and instead of 7 there will be 8 actually. And then we have the size of an integer, that is 4. Then number of bits, actually size will be 32 bits, and then float max value is 3.4028235 E38 actually. Okay, exponential of 38. That is the maximum value. Then for character, it takes 2 bytes, and that's nothing but 16 bits. That is the size. And I'm actually reading. I'm actually creating integer object x comma y with the 10 and 25. So I'm printing the math addition of x plus y, that is 35. Okay, so it is working fine actually. So since I have used this value of, so now I can actually remove these two things so that I can completely, as they are duplicated, I can completely avoid them. So now let's see, you will not be getting any compile time error. Yes, it's compiled successfully. So because I have removed them, so when you actually run, then you will be getting the same result. Okay, so this is the whole of wrapper classes. So wrapper classes are there to wrap primitive values into an object. So corresponding to each primitive value, corresponding to each primitive data type, we have a corresponding wrapper class. Apart from that, we have one more wrapper class, that is void. And next point, wrapper classes can be instantiated with their values. Okay, so int means int value, boolean means boolean value. Also, wrapper class can be instantiated with string represent values except character and void. Except character and void. Character, because it has to be represented in single quote, so you cannot represent that in double quote. And void has no values, right? So since wrapper classes are there, and they will be having some fields and of course some methods, and some of the methods we have already seen. So that is about wrapper classes. Hope you understand. And if you understand properly, like my explanation, so please like my videos. You can actually share to your friends. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my videos as well. Thank you. See you with next video.